My name is the Red Spectre. I've seen stars born and watched realities fade to black. But out of all the tales I've witnessed, none is quite as tragic as the war for the two-fold Atlantis. Now, this isn't some story about heroes. It's a chronicle of absolute power clashing in the dark. So let's dive right into this epic of self-destruction. This right here, this single idea is the heart of our story. It's the kind of lesson that gods and monsters only seem to learn when it's far, far too late. It's the moral of the story, so keep it in the back of your mind as we go deeper into the abyss. You know, every great tragedy has to have a stage, some fated place where all the drama is going to play out. For Atlantis, that stage wasn't made of rock or coral. No, it was built from a philosophical curse, an impossible cosmic law that governs its very being. Now, this isn't just some abstract theory. This is the very air they breathe, and it's the battlefield they die on. Just think of it like a fundamental law of their universe. For every action, there's an equal and opposite undoing. Every time a godlike being declares, "I am," the void itself whispers back, "No, you are not." This is the engine that drives the whole conflict. And you can see that cosmic law playing out right here. The world itself basically becomes a dark mirror. Every act of creation, every single push of willpower doesn't just make something new. It also gives power to the very thing that wants to destroy it. In this place, philosophy isn't something you debate. It becomes weaponized physics, turning the whole environment into a war zone of competing wills. So, on this cursed stage, our two main players appear. But they're not just a king and a villain. Oh no, it's much deeper than that. They're two sides of the same coin, a perfect symmetrical opposition, locked in this deadly dance of trying to annihilate each other. Let's meet them. First up, we have the foundational yes. This is Glaucus. After a massive event called Komoda, his entire atomic structure was rewritten. He basically became a living planet-sized supercomputer made of a crystalline structure of pure thought. As the hyper-cerebral architect, he uses something called phase shift sorcery to literally command water to stop moving to enter a state of absolute stasis. To him, all of reality is just one big puzzle that only his superior mind can solve. But remember that law, right? Every yes has to create a no. Well, the Mephistophelian shadow is that no. He was literally born from the mortality that Glaucus threw away. He is the spirit who denies, a perfect dark reflection of the king's own pride. His power is hydronihilism, and his weapon is burning water. And this isn't just fire, it's a dark plasma, a fourth state of matter that doesn't just destroy things, it erases them from existence. His goal? Simple, the total annihilation of the self. So, you see the setup. On one side, you have Glaucus, whose will is so strong his very presence forces order onto the universe. And on the other, you have the Shadow, whose presence is like an event horizon, a spot where physics and logic just fail. One builds, the other unbuilds. It's a perfect, unwinnable war. Just when you think this cosmic deadlock couldn't possibly get any worse, the universe decides to throw in a wild card. This perfect two-sided duel between creation and nothingness spirals into something way more chaotic, way more terrifying. The duel is about to become a nightmare of three. Think of all the magical runoff from their huge cosmic fight. From that chaotic energy, a third player crawls into existence. He's not a god. He's not a shadow. He's something else entirely. The captain from the abyss. He's a parasite, an accident of logic. And he doesn't care about grand ideas like order or chaos. He's just a whole new kind of decay. And here's how the fight changes. You've got the king trying to lock everything into perfect static order. You have the shadow trying to erase it all back to the void. But the captain? His domain is drought. His weapon is chaos water, and his goal is total dehydration. See, he doesn't want to erase the world, he wants it to rot, to turn the very cradle of life into a dry, thirsty grave. The war for reality just got a lot more complicated. In this next part, the true horror of their fight really becomes clear. Turns out, there are rules to this universe, but they weren't written by the king. No, they were written by the grave. And there's one law that trumps all the others. Above every other power, this one law reigns supreme, the law of final entropy. You can think of it as a cosmic ceiling. It doesn't matter how high Glaucus builds his crystal towers of logic, because this law says that the shadow's power, that dissolving, chaotic force, is the ultimate limit. All roads, no matter how glorious, lead back to disillusion. It's not a possibility. It's an absolute certainty. And of course, every law needs an enforcer. So meet the Sea Stormer. Awakened by these ancient powers, he doesn't fight for one side or the other. He fights for the end itself. He uses rune magic to literally rewrite the bonds of the sea to enforce that finality. His weapon? The Void Blight. It's a kind of light that consumes the very ideas of time and space, just to make sure that the final storm always, always favors the grave.
But even in a universe that's seemingly destined for the grave, where every single equation is rigged to equal zero, every once in a while, a new variable shows up, a little whisper of defiance against that inevitable silence.
Her name is Salome, and she's not another god of absolute power. She isn't a king, and she isn't a shadow. She's more like a new frequency, a new question for a universe that thought it had everything figured out. She comes from outside the trap.
And with her on the scene, the very nature of this war starts to change. Against the captain's rotting drought, Salome brings a divine wind. And against the king's cold, static logic, a new ally named Chloris brings a terrestrial yes, a grounding force that comes from the living soil itself. You see, this isn't about overpowering the enemy anymore. It's about harmonizing and about healing. And this brings us to the final, really crucial question of the whole story. For so long, the fight was about whether existence, this stain on a perfect void, should be controlled with an iron fist or just completely erased. But Salome, she offers a third path. Can this stain actually be nurtured? Can life find a way to thrive, not through absolute power, but through balance? And so we end up right back where we started. This whole cycle of destruction, the war for Atlantis, it was never really about winning. It was a lesson. The mystery is only solved when these titans, these sovereigns of pure will, finally get it, that the ultimate expression of power isn't about ruling everything. It's about recognizing that the throne you build for yourself will one day become your own tomb.